The next GUI we're going to take a look at, click on the plus button here. We're going to do the button setup. So the button, it's going to have multiple, we're going to support all the different animations for it. That way you can see when you put it in game, you'll be able to kind of get the idea of what each of these do. And that's definitely encouraged is that once you have it in there, put 6 or 7 buttons in the scene, change each of their properties so you can start understanding what's happening with them. Alright, so we'll click on the GUI button right there. And on the tile type, go down to GUI. And description, we'll say GUI button. Alright, general settings, thumbnail. Let's go down to our thumbnail at the bottom. And then the image offset, I'm actually going to move this one up to the 1 right there to make sure it's, well, you know, we could even go is to, just to make sure we're in front of other things when we start working on the GUI camera and that part of it. Alright, no reason to receive light, so we'll turn that off. Alright, collider, we'll go ahead and turn this off. And remember, you can turn collider on, you could put it in the scene, your player could jump on it and move around. So it's not something that has to be turned off. You can actually use it where you can drag it and use it as a walking device for the player. Lots of different elements that would be very unique to it. Okay, so the UVs are fine. We'll go ahead and scroll all the way down here. Let's get into the GUI part. Alright, so GUI type, we know it's a button, so by default we already have a button selected. GUI animation, so we're going to go ahead and load up all of them for here. So I'm just going to go to normal, we'll do down, hover, and hold. Tap, drag, swipe. Okay. And once we have all these in, now this means that now we have full support in terms of the button state. We can make the button visibly, we can make it use all of the states and see them and everything happening with them. Alright, the audio, of course, same thing. If you had audio files, you would stick those in there. Alright, GUI input, we're going to say that all the states are actually going to be available. Now in the end result, you're probably going to want to choose just one state. If it's a button to click on, there's no reason for swipe and long press and all those things. You may just want to tap only, or you may just want an up and down only. So be sure that you pick it with intention as to what is it going to be used for. GUI camera, we'll just say it's going to be shown in the GUI only, and then it's only going to be used on the GUI camera for the input. The anchor, just like the other one, we're just going to say it's auto. Alright, and then GUI scale, and then all the other stuff. So let's go ahead and get down to the parts and pieces of a button. So a button actually has a lot of different parts to it in terms of what you can actually do with it, because you can click on the button, but you can also do a lot of things as to what happens after the button's clicked or during the state of the button. The widget on the button settings, so on click completed, nothing happens, buttons disabled, buttons removed, unlimited clicking, number of times. So all of these are just saying what happens when you push the button down, or when it's activated, what happens. For us right now, we're just going to say it's unlimited clicking, meaning that you can just click and click. However, if you wanted to say button is disabled, that means that when I click on the button, it's going to show the disabled button, which also means I can't click on it because it's disabled. You can have a reset, so if the reset time is here, it'll be 1 second and the button actually goes back to a reset value. If you want to do a single click and the button goes away so that the user no longer sees it, then you can actually say button's removed. Alright. The events that happen with a button, this is basically, if you read it in terms like a sentence, button is, and you're just simply saying, what is the button in terms of its initial action? It's a normal button that you use to click and make something happen, or it's an active state that has basically a toggle. You go from active to deactive. It starts, say, it's disabled until something happens to make it either a normal state or an active state. You can also say like a toggle with the active deactive. You can say active at start just so that it'll go ahead and run the button action when it gets started. Alright, button input. If you notice, this is going to be when does the action occur. So does the action on click, meaning when I push down, or when I let the button go on up? So if you were, think about when you're pushing a button for a player to jump. Does the player jump when you push the button down? Does the player jump after a long press of 1 or 2 seconds and then the player jumps? So each of these are all just to say how does the button react to the input? When does that event actually happen? Alright, so if you do a button action, you have a normal state toggle, active only, deactivate only. So again, button action means that you're actually going to be doing something with it. This one, you could choose a normal state and you're just simply saying it's a regular button. The receiver action, now these are going to be a little bit different and it's still being fleshed out, but the idea behind it is that the toggle means that when I push the button, if I have a panel, for instance like the 9 slice, it'll actually send a message to it if it's connected and turn it off or turn it back on, so you could toggle back and forth. Basically setting up like a tab system for a form or for a multiple images to be shown. Alright. And we have the widget text. So again, text, this is going to be if you want something printed on the button. You may want to have one that says press play to start. You could put that in here, but if you know you're going to do lots of different text, then you might want to just leave it blank so that you can fill it out in Build a Game instead. All the standard features for text are going to be inside of here. So everything that you're going to need to set it up, when you go into here, you can be very specific as to what you want it to look like. Alright. And after that point, we have all the other settings again like we looked at before. We have the normal settings, scale, and all these. This means that when I push the button or when the button is active, do you want it to, one is how long does it take for the uptime duration. So for instance, you might want to say it's just a tenth of a second for the normal setting to actually take place. The scale and the color, when I click down, I'm just saying that what do I want the color to look like, what do I want the scale to look like, and then how long is the transition. So again, that is for the normal, for the down state, the hold state, and for all those. And those, just remember that when you change it, for instance, if I go there and I say, this is a real quick thing here, if I say normal, and I change my normal scale to 10%, 20% larger and enable it, if I don't enable the down state, if I don't enable another state to counteract it, to bring it back to what it was, it'll just say that, okay, well, the button is now 10% larger and it stays that way. So be sure that if you're going to change the button size, be sure that you're playing with both properties for it to take it up and down. Alright, so those are going to be the basic settings for it. Again, we can do all the other stuff, but they're all, like, hopefully it makes it easier, is that all of these are the same. They just all have the properties so that you can be